Will there be a war between Iran and the US in 2025, or is it possible that a deal is struck between the Trump government and the Islamic Republic of Iran, between these two arch rivals? Because since 1979, when the Shah of Iran was overthrown and a radical Islamic government came into power in Iran, the Islamic Republic has consistently seen the US as the great adversary, as the great enemy, both in political terms and even in religious terms. So is it possible that this karmically problematic relationship, this really deeply intertwined but very difficult relationship, is transformed into some type of peace or some type of deal? Or is it inevitably going to lead to a war? In this video, we're going to look at the astrology of some of the key factors, Trump's astrology, Khamenei's astrology, and of some of the other factors in order to answer these questions and to give a prognosis on what's coming next. Okay, so we're gonna do a few things in this video. We're gonna look at the astrocartography of Trump with regards to the Middle East and specifically Iran. And that's gonna allow us to understand how he relates to some of the players that are involved there. And then we're going to decode specifically in depth Khamenei and his special forces, the special stormtroopers, the IRGC, the Islamic Revolutionary Guard Corps that he has, to understand whether a deal is possible with these people, with the leaders, and with the supreme leader and his special army, basically. And at the end, we're also going to look at the upcoming cycles to wager a prognosis for what's to come and what's likely to happen next. So, first of all, it's important to understand this is a very problematic relationship that exists, and it's a karmic relationship. We can already see this, I mean, not just between the US and the Islamic Republic of Iran, right? The Islamic Republic of Iran has picked the US as its main adversary from the beginning, from when they came into power, when it started. Everything started with the hostage crisis, the American hostage crisis, and the embassy, and when the Shah was ousted. That's how the Islamic Republic started, right? And since then, they're always chanting death to America. They always kind of, putting themselves into the trance like that, like with the mantra almost. America, America. Of kind of, putting themselves into this enmity, opposition with America. And also you could see that from Trump, specifically from Trump's relationship with Iran, because in Trump's first term, he ordered the hit on Qasem Soleimani, who was the kind of mastermind, brilliant general who organized the military strategy, the geostrategic setup of the Islamic Republic of Iran.
In my direction, the United States military successfully executed a flawless precision strike that killed the #1 terrorist anywhere in the world, Qasem Soleimani.
We're going to come back to that later and really understand that much better, because it's important in order to understand what Iran is going to do next as well, right? So Trump is a representative in so many ways of the collective karma of America. And that's why obviously he takes on some of these karmic this embeddedness, entanglements, these karmic entanglements of his nation. He takes that on personally as well. That's why if we look at his personal relationship, at his personal astrology with the region, we will understand so much more of what's possible in the coming time. That's the first thing we want to do, right? But watch this video till the end, because at the end of the video, I'm going to look at forward looking. I'm going to look at the coming cycles, and we're going to look at what's possible in the coming time, right? But let's start with this. Let's go into Trump's astrocartography to understand his relationship with Iran. So very simple thing. You can look in the astrocartography and you can see what activations you have in any location, right? So if it's if it's for yourself and it's the most helpful tool in existence to understand whether you should move somewhere, if you should do business somewhere, or, you know, if you should, whatever, what type of experiences you can have in a place, right? It's the most accurate tool. But if it's for a politician, it helps us even understand the politics and the relationship of the state that he's going to enact through the state with that nation, right? And in this case, we're going to see that Trump, he has these parans. He has two parans. This is basically the type of aspects that we have in astrocartography. One is Uranus-Neptune, and one is Mars-Uranus, okay? So 2 times Uranus, 1 times with Mars, 1 times with Neptune. Uranus is about revolution, right? Revolutionary energy. It's the change energy. So Trump is destined to be some type of revolutionary force for Iran, right? But there's 2 options he has. There's Uranus-Neptune, which is through ideals. He can be a revolutionary through bringing new ideals, through supporting an, you know, a ideal-driven revolution in Iran. Or Uranus-Mars. He can be a revolutionary through bombs. Basically, Mars is missiles and bombs. He can attack, right? He has that. Those are the possibilities that Trump has. This is how he naturally relates to Iran, whether he or even understands it himself or not, whether he even, you know, is, oftentimes these things are not fully reflected by yourself, right? This is just, life puts you into those situations, and then you will see that, oh, okay, this is how it turned out. Exactly what was written in the astrocartography actually turned out at the end of the day, right? So this is one thing already that we should register and record for ourselves now as we deepen our investigations in this video, right? As we're going to get deeper. So the next thing I'm going to show you, look at it here. Sana is in Yemen. Okay, in Yemen, Trump has Mars in Zenith. You see this here, Mars in Zenith. Mars is at its highest point. Okay, so very clearly, Mars in Zenith means that that's the place where you're experienced as a warlord. That's the place where you're experienced as an aggressive force. Obviously, and that's what you see, they started already the campaign right now by bombing and attacking the Houthis who are in Yemen and who are sort of blocking the international passage of ships through the Gulf of Aden and the Red Sea, because they're protesting Israel. That's what they're saying. They're saying we're protesting Israel. We don't want to, you are against what Israel is doing in Gaza specifically. That's what they're saying. But they are, very importantly, backed by Iran, by the Islamic Republic of Iran. Islamic Republic of Iran is the mastermind. They're supporting them, and they're one of the cronies, one of the proxies, one of the many proxies that Iran has in the region. We'll get back to this later, because this is very, very typical of how the Islamic Republic of Iran acts and how they function, right? And we'll get back to this from a metaphysical, astrological perspective as well. So that's the second point that I'm adding here. You see this? Very clear, makes sense. Now, there is another point that is important that we can check out, which is that after Trump gave the ultimatum, he gave an ultimatum, right? He came and said, like, okay, if Iran doesn't come to the table to talk to us, we're going to bump Iran next, right? That's what he said. And the Iranians didn't budge. Obviously, the Islamic Republic of Iran didn't budge. They said, like, oh, okay, we're gonna attack back, right? We have every possibility in the book. We can attack back, and there's nothing you can do, right? Come if you want. But then shortly, so they kind of responded very strong. But then shortly after, they actually gave the indications that they're actually open to have not direct talks, but indirect talks to make a deal. And these indirect talks are supposed to take place in Oman. Muscat, Oman. Okay, so look at Oman right now. I'm going to show you Oman. Oman is this country, sort of a neutral country between Iran and the US. They're not fully with the US. They're not fully on Iran's side. They're just there, right? And Oman, you can see here, Oman has a pretty good astrology for Trump. There is a sun on the DS, which is perfect. Sun on the descendant is the place where you can make deals with people. It's very good for you to make deals with people, right? But then also, and there's also Mercury in Zenith, Saturn in Zenith, not bad. It's a good place for Venus in Zenith, Venus and Mercury in Zenith. So this is a place where Trump can definitely make a deal, definitely can make a deal. Only there's one issue, there's one problem here, and that's that there's this Neptune MC line, right? And you see that actually here in the astrocartography. You see that it's running here pretty closely through you see this here, this purple line, right? And it's running pretty closely through Oman. Okay, so what is the meaning of this? The Neptune line, Neptune on the MC line, it adds some level of some problems to this whole issue, because Neptune, we know, could be ideals, but also can be deception, can be lies and deception, right? So Trump, specifically for Oman, where these negotiations are supposed to take place, and where he will probably send his team, right? Just like he sent the teams for Ukraine negotiations and so on. That is a place where he can make a deal, but there's also the risk of confusion and deception, right? So let's keep this in mind as we look at the next puzzle piece in this investigation. So the next piece that I want to look at is, can Khamenei, the supreme leader of Iran, can he be dealt with? Can he be, is it possible to make a deal with him? Is it possible to make a deal with the supreme leader of Iran? You got to know he is really the person who calls all the shots, right? Even though Iran has a president and has all kinds of other, prime minister and so on and so forth, but the supreme leader calls all the shots. He's like the final instance. He decides over war and peace. He gives the final course direction. Without him, you can't make peace with US. You can't do things, right? So Khamenei, he is somebody that's very important for us to understand. Like, first of all, this guy, he's not, he's the guy who came into power after the death of Khomeini. Khomeini was the first guy. Khomeini was the leader of the Islamic Revolution. They're very different. They have a similar name. People sometimes confuse them, Khamenei. They're actually different, very different people. Very different karma as well. I'm going to do in future videos, I'm going to do deep dives into Khomeini as well, because a very, very dark person. Very, very dark energy, dark karma. And he goes back into history, into the karmic reincarnation lines, are actually very important to decode if you want to understand what happened to Iran, right? And what happened to the region. But be that as it may, Khamenei he's also hugely important character, hugely important personality in history as well, and over many lifetimes, which is something we can look at in future videos. But now, if you look at his current chart, this is his chart, the chart of Khamenei, right? So this guy, he's a military guy. He's a military leader through and through, right? You have here a sun and moon and Saturn in Aries, right? In Aries, like extremely, this is like completely focused, super serious Spartan military leader who's all about, about battle, really. Because this same thing, it's in a square with Mars. You have Mars here on top, right? You can see that, Mars. And it's also in a square with Pluto, okay? So Pluto is here, and it's squaring the war leader, the military leader, and Mars is up here and squaring, right? So this gives you a person who is all about military strategy, all about military conquest. This guy is actually not really a spiritual leader, right? He came into power. He was a mullah, but he was like one of these, clerics. But he went up in the ranks through in the war against Saddam Hussein, Iran-Iraq war in the 80s, right? And that's when he was a military strategist, and that's who he is, right? And now, let's continue, let's understand him better. What else is here? We have to look at what's with the sun if we want to understand the character of the person, right? So the sun is with the following asteroids. We look at the asteroids to decode and understand what's going on. We've got Pallas here. Pallas, the politician, the consummate politician. We've got here King, right? He's the supreme leader, the king, right? We got here Nessus. Nessus is very important. Nessus it stands for revenge. Okay, so it's the mythological principle of revenge. This guy is driven by revenge. That's his motive. He wants to take revenge, right? Remember when Qasem Soleimani was hit, Khamenei came out and he gave this thing. He gave this credo and this plan. He said hard revenge. He said we will take revenge no matter how long it takes. We will wait and we will take revenge. And you can see in his chart right now, like I showed you, he is driven by revenge. Revenge is his motive, right? Is his kind of main motive. And what else? This is who his personality is, with his sun, right? Everything that's with the sun is your main personality, is what you're about. And then we've got here Munchausen. Munchausen. This is from the German mythology. And Munchausen is the baron who lies, the lying baron. The lying baron. Keep that in mind, right? The lying baron. So Munchausen is there. And what else? And then you got Vladimir Lenin, which is the revolutionary leader. Okay? So far what we got? The politician who is a king and who is driven by desire for revenge and who is a liar, or who has this in him to be a baron of lies, and who is a revolutionary leader, right? And is all about this Spartan military, approach, right? The guy who is basically, he doesn't take anything for himself. He's super disciplined, and he's just about focused on the mission. His mission is revenge, right? His mission is revenge. And then you got this one asteroid here. This is here, Yamato. You only see Yamato. This one, it stands for an asteroid. It's called Yamato no Orochi. Yamato no Orochi. This is very interesting. It's exactly conjunct the sun. This is an asteroid. It stands for, in the Japanese mythology, it stands for the eight-headed serpent. Yamato no Orochi. The eight-headed serpent in Japanese mythology is a sort of the idea of satanic forces that the Japanese have, but it is an idea that represents itself through this, not directly attacking, but attacking from many different angles. It has 8 heads, like that, Hydra. When you cut off one head, another head grows somewhere else. It is spread out. It has tentacles. It attacks from lots of different sides. It doesn't attack straight on. It attacks from lots of different sides with tentacles, right? This is on his sun. And it's very important to keep this in mind. Remember when we talked about the proxy wars, the proxies, right? The proxies, they are the principle that Khamenei operates with. He has these proxies everywhere. In Syria, in Iraq, he has them in Yemen, he has them and keep in mind, this is a very, very different way of governing than, for instance, than the Persian Empire. Right? The Persian Empire, which has thousands of years of history, had a lot of influence over a lot of areas. But the Persian Empire was a benevolent empire, which has satrapies that could live however they wanted, that could pursue their own religion, their own spirituality, or their own approaches to things, their own culture, right? They weren't oppressed into changing to becoming anything, right? And they were integrated into a system, into kind of a benevolent, larger governance system. This is very different from this system, Khamenei's system, which is almost the reverse, the flip side, the opposite. It's almost exactly the mirror opposite, the dark, twisted opposite of the original. The original Persian principle of ruling and governing the Middle East, which goes back to Cyrus the Great. Cyrus the Great was the first emperor of humanity who ruled a large, universal empire, which all known countries of the time were part of this empire. Every known country was part. The list goes like 60 different tribes and nations. Everybody was part of the empire of Cyrus the Great, who is mentioned in the Bible as a Messiah in the Old Testament. And Cyrus the Great's principle is written on the cuneiform. So there is the rights of nations, or the rights of people is an artifact where it said everybody can keep their rights, everybody can live how it accords to their spirit, how it makes sense for their spirit, and everybody can pursue their happiness, basically, or pursue their nature, their essential nature in the empire. And you can see this Yamato no Orochi, what I just told you about Khamenei, is in many ways the reverse of that. Is the reverse, because this is not an integrated empire of free peoples. It's on the contrary, these are actually independent states. Yemen is independent, and Iraq is independent, and Syria is, all of them are independent, but they have these groups of fanatics within them who are, religious fanatics and who are driven by death cult. It's some type of death cult, right? Because that's also, there's a very dark aspect to the type of spirituality that the Islamic Republic of Iran presents in them. And this is the principle that Khamenei is driving forward in his being and in his existence and in his strategy, as I just showed you. And it's written in his chart, right? So now I'm going to show you more. Now, this guy, he's what else can we say about him? There's so much more here. This sun is opposite all of this stuff here. I'm not going to go through all of this, is too much. But importantly, the sun is opposite Pandora, Fraternitas, Oppenheimer. And this is with Princeps, the boss, okay? So the boss of a fraternity or of a brotherhood that brings out darkness. Draco is here too. Draco is darkness, right? That brings out darkness. And that is about Oppenheimer. Oppenheimer stands for what? Oppenheimer stands for nuclear weapons, right? And this is opposite his sun, is part of his character, is who he is, right? So he is not just this politician who is driven by revenge, right? And operates with this multi-headed serpent way, but he's also essentially somebody who's the boss of a fraternity that will define itself eventually over nuclear weapons. It's written in his chart, right? It's written in his chart. And then you got here, what else you got here? This is like so clear, it's crystal clear when you look at the chart, right? You got here, you got a Jupiter-Venus conjunction. So this is wealth, very large amounts of wealth. But importantly, because he's this Spartan guy, this is not, the wealth doesn't go to himself, right? He lives very, very, on very limited, austere way, right? The wealth doesn't go to himself, but he has like billions and billions of dollars in his foundations, things like Setat, foundations where he has billions and millions of dollars, and that they have taken basically from the oil, right? From selling oil. Iran has oil, vast amounts of oil and gas and all of these things, right? And these are used to, you can see this here, Jupiter Venus is opposite this. I'm not going to spend too much here to go because I have other things to talk about in this video, but this is opposite Neptune. So you have here Neptune, Irani with, and then Jupiter here, Jupiter Venus with Fanatica and United Nations. Okay, Jupiter opposite Neptune. This is another sign of what? This is another sign of the delusion. Could be the great visionary, but it also is possible the delusionary. Visionary or delusionary. Jupiter opposite Neptune, right? And this is with Fanatica, Utopia, United Nations, and Irani. So this is another sign that shows me there's somebody who, as part of his being, he would lie. He would lie to who? United Nations. The United Nations is the whole collective of human nations, right? So somebody who, for his fanaticism, and as the visionary leader of Iran, who he is, he's a visionary leader for the Islamic Republic of Iran, he will lie to the world as well, right? This is also written in the chart. So now, when you put these aspects together, you're going to ask me, is it possible to make a deal with this person, right? And I'm not done yet, because I'm going to share more with you. Just to make it absolutely and perfectly clear, I'm also what the answer will be if it's possible to make a deal with this person. Just to make it absolutely clear, I'm also going to show you the chart of the Islamic Revolutionary Guard Corps, right? So these guys, you gotta know, these are the stormtroopers of the supreme leader, right? This is an army within the army, or a state within the state. In addition to the regular military, which has all the, has everything, Air Force and Navy and so on, the IRGC have all of that for themselves. They have their own Air Force, they have their own, they have their own missiles, they have everything for themselves, they have their own funding, and they only respond to the supreme leader, right? There are his special forces, and these guys are very well trained, very well trained. They're like top, military forces, and really, really well trained military forces, really well equipped. Iran has been producing so much in weapons indigenously, right? Iran is one of the leading missile producers in the world. I think it's third or fourth in the world in missile power, right? Vast amounts of missile of all ranges. Drones, their drones are being used in Ukraine, Russia, Ukraine right now. They're producing a lot of weapons and everything indigenously and everything for asymmetric warfare. And these guys, IRGC, who are they? They were brought into being shortly after the Islamic Revolution, to become this special guard to protect the Islamic Republic. That's who they are, right? And this is written in their chart as well. So if you look at their chart, this is the IRGC, and you're going to see, I'm going to keep this short because there is so much, otherwise this is going to get super long. But just what you can see here. Okay, these guys, their sun is, I'm going to tell you about here. The sun tells you about the essence, right? The sun tells you about the essence. Sun is conjunct Al-Maq. Al-Maq is the star, the fixed star that stands for the general, is the general. Even in Chinese astrology, Al-Maq is known as the general of the skies. It brings the greatest military power. The sun is exactly conjunct Al-Maq, right? The greatest military power possible. So sun is conjunct Al-Maq. And what else? Dares. Dares stands for the gladiator, right? So we can see, definitely, okay, this is a military force. Yamato no Orochi is exactly conjunct the sun. Is exactly conjunct the sun. So we see, again, the same principle, the principle of the 8-headed serpent, the serpent with the 8 heads that attacks from everywhere, all the tentacles, is not just with Khamenei in his chart, is also with the IRGC, exactly on the sun, right? Just how I showed you, this is who they are. This is who they are. They are this counter, this reverse, this dark reverse of what the Persian Empire used to be. They're the dark reverse of it, right? And now, well, what else you can see? So what else you can see? Babylon. Babylon is with the sun. Babylon is here. Babylon stands for the forces of darkness, the line of darkness. And it's in opposition, the sun is who they are, stands in opposition to Oppenheimer with Uranus. Uranus is, right, innovation, and Oppenheimer, nuclear. Nuclear innovation is again on the sun. So this is essential. Nuclear power and nuclear energy and nuclear weapons is essential to who they are, to IRGC just as much as to Khamenei. This is why it keeps going on and on, the issue about nuclear. Or do they have nuclear or don't they have nuclear? They may already have nuclear weapons. The chart shows you, both Khamenei and IRGC chart shows you that nuclear and nuclear weapons is essential to who they are and will play a major role in their story, right? So now you can think about it yourself. What does that mean? Do they already have nuclear weapons? Do they already have nuclear weapons? Very possible, right? So now, what else you got? It just, just not to show too much, just this much still. Pluto opposite Mars, the warrior, the major, ruthless warriors. Pluto is with Irani and with Arabia. You can see this here. They are a power, a dark power that rules over the Iranians and over parts of the Arabs, those countries of the Arabs that they have, that they are in. And this is with Mars and Russia. I'm going to leave it not so much, but look at this. Saturn exactly with America. Saturn with America. You see this here? Saturn is obviously the great challenger, the opponent, and also the enemy, right? What is your great challenge or what opposes you in life, what you have to overcome. And you saw that Saturn exactly with America. Interestingly, Israel is not actually in their chart shown as an opponent. This is a whole nother story. I'm going to leave that for future videos, right? But keep this in mind. Just understand this. Khamenei and the IRGC, they are programmed, karmically programmed, to create chaos in the area, to create chaos and to bring their rule of fanaticism into the region. And to oppose America as well. That's what they're programmed to do, both of these things, right? Is it possible to make a deal with these groups? It's not. Very clear. Very, very clear. It's not possible to make a deal. And remember that I showed you Oman, the place where Khamenei chose or where his government chose as a negotiation spot. Trump has the possibility there of what? Of making a deal, yes, but also of being deceived. This is why you gotta count with the possibility, very, very strong possibility. And now I'm going to get to the final part of this video where you're asking what's going to happen next, what's likely to happen next, right? So I'm going to tell you, we're going to look at the cycles a little bit, and we're going to see what's going to happen next, right? But just before that, make sure to subscribe to this channel, like and comment and do all of that. Find the link for consultations below if you are seeking personal guidance. Now, the question was, what's going to happen in this situation? Is this going to lead to, is it going to happen? What's going to happen this year? What's going to happen this year and beyond? First of all, I'm going to give you a couple of pointers. First, I'm not going to make a 100% prediction to say this will happen, but I will give you the parameters so you'll understand, right? And you will be able to work with this to some extent if that's, something that is important for you. I know certainly is important for myself. For many people, it's important to know what's going to happen with Iran and with the region. But first thing is to know is that right now, this year, you can see this here, in the Aries ingress of the year, Mars is on the ascendant. We're seeing here, Mars is exactly on the ascendant. So this is a year, the Aries ingress shows you always how that region will play out in that year, right? So, and this is for Tehran, exactly. This means that this year, 25, which just started, right? This year, which started with Nowruz, with the ingress of the sun. The Persian New Year is actually the astrological birth of the year, always, right? So it falls on the first day of the year, which in astrology, we create charts for the first day of the year, astrologically speaking, is the 21st of March. And this chart shows you Mars is on the ascendant. Iran will be in attack mode this year. The Islamic Republic of Iran will be in attack mode this year. They will be aggressive. They will be assertive. They will be really assertive, right? And if it gets to, there's one period where this is gonna, I don't want to show you all of the charts, but 25th of April, last weeks of April. In the last weeks of April, both Iran chart and Khamenei chart get triggered with this very, brutal constellation that's coming up, Mars-Pluto opposition with Sun. And it's very possible and likely that some escalation happens around that time. This is in a few weeks, right? End of April, towards the end of April. If that time passes and somehow the escalation is managed, or it's just kind of some saber rattling, and it doesn't really break out into a massive confrontation, then it's possible that a deal is reached in the coming time. But as I've been telling you, this deal is not likely to last, because it's going to be very, very, very likely, in fact, almost completely certain from an astrological perspective, that there will be deception in this deal. If a deal is made between Trump and Khamenei, there will be deception in this deal. And then in the coming time, within Trump's term, this will lead to more trouble, to more problems further down the line. And you're going to say, is it possible that the Iranian government is ousted and that they have to leave, and and that the Iranian government has to change and so on? And would you say, maybe you're going to ask yourself, since I'm talking like this and I'm telling you these guys are, this government and these group of people, they are representing dark forces. You're going to say, so should the US go to war with Iran? Is that something I would advocate? And I can tell you with absolute and complete certainty, no. It's not something I would advocate. Absolutely not. For many reasons. First of all, because if there is a war between the US and Iran, the people of Iran will be suffering. The people of Iran will be suffering who are already largely, many of them are not behind the government, are not behind the Islamic Republic of Iran. Obviously, the Americans will be suffering. Americans have 50,000 troops in the region, and they can all be hit. All of the 100 whatever bases that they have. Iran has the capacity to destroy all of those bases, all of the American bases in the region. They have the missiles, they have the capacity, right? So people will suffer. And it's not going to be like the previous wars. You need to understand, they were already very catastrophic. The wars that the Americans had in the Middle East, right? Syria, Libya, not even Syria, Libya, Iraq, Iraq invasion, Afghanistan. All of those countries are suffering right now. All of those countries are in horrific state right now. The Americans didn't get, America didn't get anything positive or beneficial out of those wars. And you also have to understand that Iran is different to all of those countries. Iran is not the same as those countries. Those countries, even though they have people who have a lot of history, but they are artificial countries. All of those countries were created in the 20th century after colonial arrangements with the French and the English. Iran is one of 3 nations on earth which has over 2,500 years of continuous history. Over 2,500 years. There's only 2 other nations, only civilizations you have to say. There's only 2 others, China and India. China, India, and Iran are the only civilizations on earth which have 2,500 years plus of continuous existence as a civilization, right? So this is very, very different. Very, very different to a nation that is kind of artificial, that was created, on the drawing board 70 years ago, 60 years ago, where half of the people don't even work together really, they were kind of forced together. This is very different. There's a lot of resources there that Iranians, and also you need to know Iran has the 5th most resources on the planet. And they're smart people. There's recent IQ tests that were done globally with hundreds of thousands of people, and Iranians have the 2nd highest IQ in the world, right? In tests that were done recently. So it's not something that you can think of, okay, you will attack, and this is not going to work out for anybody, right? They have resources, they have a lot of the ability to rally, and if the Iranians see that their country is being attacked, they will rally behind the country, even though there is this brutal and horrific and dictatorial and really anti-Iranian, un-Iranian, it's an un-Iranian regime that is currently in power. You can say in many ways, this regime that is currently in power is the worst and the lowest point in 3,000 years of 2,500 years of history, right? Of where half of this time was Persian empires that were glorious. And now it's really the low point. It's the low point of the whole of the Persian history. So then you're going to say, what's the solution? What's the solution? How can you actually change anything? And the solution is only going to be for the Iranian people to change their government, right? The Iranian people to change their government. And can America play a role in this? Yes, America has to maybe even play a role in this because America is karmically intertwined with Iran. Really intertwined, right? It's possible that has to even play a role in this. But it's not going to be through a frontal war. It's not going to be through a frontal invasion or anything like, that happened in Iraq or whatever, right? It's not going to be through anything like that. That would be catastrophic for the world, for the whole world. The Iranians would close the Strait of Hormuz. The world economy would collapse. It's really catastrophic, if it gets there. Okay, so now I didn't share the charts with you now. I had charts for the next years and what's going to happen, Khamenei, what's going to happen with the IRGC and so on and so forth. But I'm not going to go into charts. I will just distill for you the results of that so you know that as well. Over the next year, Iranian government will be aggressive. They will be very aggressive. Their power basis will be continued to be cut and reduced. Right? Their wealth, access to power in the region will continue to get cut, but they will be assertive nonetheless. Very, very assertive. And I don't see any possibility for ousting them in the coming years. The only possibility that exists is going to be 2027. 27, 28 is years when both Khamenei and IRGC have extremely problematic transits coming up. Okay, and until then, it's gonna be very difficult to oust these people. They're set up, they have power, they're smart, they know what they're doing, they control things, and until then, it's gonna be important to support the Iranian people. Support the Iranian people in creating an alternative vision, right? An alternative creation. I know this video is getting long, but I'm sharing one more thing with you. So when I said to you that Khamenei, the supreme leader, he will not shy away from lying. I said he will not shy away from lying, right? And he will go into deals and he will deceive. You have to understand, this is a doctrine, and you're going to say, here's a spiritual leader, supposed spiritual, but what kind of spirituality? What kind of spirituality? You have to understand, this is a type of spirituality that Khamenei represents that allows deception, that allows lying. Literally, there is a doctrine, taghiyah, the doctrine that is the doctrine of lying. It is allowed to lie if it improves your political situation. in their spirituality. And you will understand again that I say what these guys are doing is the mirror opposite, is the reverse of the Iranian civilization, of the truth of the Iranian civilization. When you go back all the way in the Iranian original spirituality of Zoroaster, of Zarathustra, who was a precursor to the God avatar, the Lord Jesus Christ. In the Zoroastrian spirituality, the greatest opponent, the greatest enemy, the greatest failing, the greatest sin is lying. Is lying. Druj, the spirit of Druj, which is Duruj, the spirit of the lie. Right? So you can see really these guys are the inverse image, the inverse distorted image of what Iranian is supposed to be and what the Persian civilization is supposed to be. Now I'm going to leave you with this, and let me know in the comments how you feel about the situation and what you think will happen next and what you would like to see next. I'm going to make more videos on Persian history, on Iranian history, and on the Middle East, largely, broadly speaking. And we're going to go into different aspects of this in future, over time, right? Let me know in the comments what you'd like to see next. And let's hope and pray for a good outcome for the region and for humanity. All the best, be well, and be blessed.